just like honey, sweet to taste on burning lips. Wanna lie beneath the water, feeling icy fingertips. Soothing nectar to my body, wash the image from my eyes. Dirty streets of hungry people, drink the water, dry your eyes. First one look at the reflections, listen to the music made. Drinking water's ease the mind, thoughts of you begin to fade. Flowing water just like honey, sweet to taste on burning lips. Wanna lie beneath the water, feeling icy fingertips.
The nation is under siege. The nation is under siege.
Camera.
Good evening, everybody. This is Divided We Stand on YouTube and on Facebook. We are not a monetized channel, so if you think we're looking for money, you've come to the wrong place. We are the real deal. We are demonetized. We do not, in fact, we never were monetized. We're not looking for anything but your commiseration. Again, you can find us on YouTube and on Facebook. If you're not subscribed to our channel, you can find us on YouTube. It's Divided We Stand. There are quite a few channels with the name Divided We Stand, so you're going to have to look for us. But you'll find us. And when you do, we ask that you subscribe to our channel. That's all. Same thing on Facebook. We have a Facebook group page, Divided We Stand. There might be a few Divided We Stands out there, but probably fewer than on YouTube. We ask that you become a member. We have quite a popular page, and we all do commiserate, so we invite you. You aren't necessarily going to be in our chat room, some of you are incognito, and that's fine too, but we do ask that you become a part of our group, because we're going to need each other over the next 4 years, if we can survive those 4 years. Tonight, like any other night, we have a special night. We have our co-hosts, that would be David Price and Ryan Velez. Dave is broadcasting tonight from Las Vegas. I don't know if he's on a gambling junket or wanting to see the strip shows there or what. And then we have Ryan Velez, who is in, I believe,
Louisville.
he's in Kentucky, Louisville, right in Louisville. So it's good to see Ryan again. So without any further ado, I'd like to invite our guests to come on live, and here they are. Gentlemen, good to see you.
Brian, I'd like to start with a couple of questions. Number one is, I notice, is your hat on backwards or is your head on backwards?
Yes, my hat is
Yes to
on
both.
backwards.
Yes to both, or
Yes.
just yes to
No,
one?
yes to one.
Okay. And the other, wasn't really paying attention. You said something about you don't sanitize. Is that what you said? Something about
Monetized.
oh,
Sanitize.
I thought it was sanitized, and you didn't shake
Well,
showers.
you might
Right.
have to sanitize after being in Las Vegas, for Christ's sake. What are you doing there,
Hey,
Dave?
well, actually, it's a long story that I'll make short. Judy's roommate from college and her husband celebrated their 43rd wedding anniversary, and we decided to do it out here. So that's what we've been doing is celebrating an anniversary for 4 days, and I've been following. I have a new career now. I follow Trump cab drivers and Uber drivers. There's one out here that I found, and trust me, we took quite a few, who was not a Trumper, and that includes Mediterranean Americans and Hispanics. So not to say that every taxi driver and every Uber driver and every Lyft driver is, but I could say that everyone that I talked to was, because I made it a point to talk to them, and then we would discuss things. It was interesting.
And that's good. That's good. And how's I know you're a connoisseur of food. Have you been
No, actually,
visiting the restaurants?
that's a sad thing. So I have to talk about Sue. That's Judy's roommate. Um, if you know someone who's very, very nice and really nice person, but extremely superficial, that would be Sue. So we went to this one restaurant, and she didn't like the ambiance. I thought you don't eat ambiance, and we went to a place, and she said it was ambiance, which didn't have ambiance, and the food was horrible. So, and then I don't know, Brian, you follow. I'm sure I know Brian wouldn't because he wouldn't do this, but I'm sure you follow the Housewives series, the Housewives of.
I don't know that,
Do you
honestly.
do
I
that?
don't.
I don't know.
Anyway, Sue does, and I just happen to know the name. That's all I knew. I didn't know anything about it. Vanderpump. Apparently, that is one of the characters on the Housewives of Hollywood or LA or something like that. And of course, capitalizing on reality TV a la Trump. Reality TV is creating our heroes and heroes and villains now. She opened two restaurants in Paris, so we went there, and I've never seen anybody smile so much just to be in a place that was named Vanderpump. So that's about it.
Vanderpump. That's quite
Yeah, it's
interesting. It was
one of
from
the actors
the
was there.
Netherlands or Denmark or whatever.
I would assume so. I mean, I don't know. I just know that apparently the Vanderpump name is like the Kardashian name now.
Hmm.
Maybe not quite as famous, but up there like a Paris Hilton. I don't know why. Actually, I probably research it to find out why Vanderpump emerges. That would be interesting, right? Sue belongs to 51 groups of majority by far women. I don't know if there's any men on there who talk about and do this whole thing, housewives of reality. And like a professional wrestler fan, or some of them, she insists it's not scripted. Well, it is, but Trump's was scripted. His people have already said that. But just think about that. A reality show made Donald Trump. Without that reality show, he is not president of the United States.
That's
100%
true.
certain.
That's true. And Ryan, good to see you. What's new in Ryan's world?
New? I don't know. Basically, I'm working in a chess startup. I can't discuss the name of it, but it's coming along. We're about a year into it, and we expect to go live within the next, 8 months or so, I guess. So that'll be exciting when that happens.
Interesting.
That will be.
Interesting. And
And like Ryan is, I mean, he is truly, the term expert is thrown around a lot, but Ryan is truly an expert in chess. I have some expertise with a word that sounds like chess, which is chess.
you
So I
certainly
would,
do, don't you?
if I were not in Las Vegas, actually, Stormy Daniels is in Washington, D.C. tonight. She's been there for 3 days. So, Stormy, if you're watching or listening, hey, um, we'll leave it at hey.
Okay. All right. I do want to ask Ryan just another brief question related to how he's doing. Knowing that Kentucky is obviously still a red state, do you notice any change in demeanor with Kentuckians now that Trump has won? Are they gloating down there or not?
Well, yeah. I mean, the way that I'm handling it is I removed something like 750 people from Facebook. Most of them were Kentucky chess players or just Kentuckians that I know, just gloating and happy and that kind of thing. And uh, basically, I just kind of decided like most of these people are not in my life regularly, so there's really no point to connect with them any longer.
Hmm.
And the few that were in my life, a good amount that I disconnected from, they pretty much just talk at me whenever they want to gossip about something. They don't really value me. Um, one guy, he just loves chess drama, and anytime there's any sort of chess drama in the community, he calls me to discuss it. And I was like, you know what, these people, they're gloating about Trump. They don't really value me as an individual, so I just disconnected from them, and I have not really looked back. But most of the people that I value are not Trump supporters, and we're all kind of commiserating together. I know a lot of people who have made plans because people who did not vote for Trump have an idea of what tariffs are, for example, whereas people who did not vote for Trump, people who did vote for Trump, clearly are going to learn what tariffs are about. And I'm concerned financially for myself and a lot of people. Like, what's it going to be like? If they're actually going to be deporting millions of people and putting tariffs on our two closest trading partners, because we did a lot of food trade with them. Like, I think food prices are going to get crazy. So I know people that are kind of preparing for that in whatever ways they think is best to prepare, whether it's stocking food, or a couple people I know left the country. I know people who are not really preparing at all, thinking things will be fine. It's just all bluster. But those are mostly Republicans who think that.
Why would
Uh,
it be any different, gentlemen? Like Ryan
yeah.
just said, there's maybe this will be like this. You hear people always say when you have somebody who's coming into office, "Well, give him a chance." I think it's quite simple that he is what he is. The Republicans are what they are. Why would anybody expect anything different out of this administration?
But see, Brian, sometimes I think you speak for a lot of liberals when you're just stunned, and you are from time to time, stunned that anybody could vote for Donald Trump.
Hmm.
Sue is like that. I mean, she just doesn't understand. She doesn't comprehend. Well, if you talk, and I'm not advising anybody to do this, but when you talk to Trumpers, they, they, not a lot of them don't worship the guy, but they really think he's good for America. Now he's not, okay, but you're not doing anything to convince him that way. So it's not like, why? Oh my God! Oh my God! Oh my God! How could they do? They did it. It's over. They did it. Okay. Trump is president elect, barring something that could come. We don't know. And already this week, and I don't want to delve into it a lot because I think we want to deal more with nationals. But we had some international and national issues that weren't there when Trump was elected. Let's look at four. All right. Let's look at the first one, the assassination in New York City. Okay. So far, according to sites that take care of this thing, 65% of the people responding are glad that the gentleman was killed. Okay? And it crosses both lines. And the point of this is going to be interesting because that assassination has brought healthcare over immigration, over everything else for this week. We don't know how long it'll go, right? And healthcare affects everybody far more than immigration. Okay, we know that Trump has spoken before, whether he'll do it or not. He's spoken about at one point he's going to cut Social Security, he's going to cut Medicare, he's going to cut Medicaid. He turns around, then he's not. We don't know what he's going to do. But wouldn't it be interesting if that was the thing that brought just a temporary union between liberals and conservatives, and when I'm saying outliers, so the radical left and the Trump MAGA right together to try to force some kind of change, if it could be done there. Then you have, think about it, just this week, at least after the election, Donald Trump, you have France and its government collapsing. South Korea goes into you know, bonkers, martial law, and then this weekend, as recently as yesterday, the Middle East is a much different place. Mr. Assad is gone, and I don't know if they've announced yet. There's some question on him if he's alive. If I
He's in
understood
Moscow
correctly.
right now. He landed in Moscow today.
Oh, he did. Okay, so
Yes.
that's what I was wondering. Because what happened was apparently tracking the plane, he was headed toward a territory in Syria that was very supportive of him, and then they lost contact with the plane, or that's what was reported. So okay, so he's in Russia, and that has ramifications for Putin because of Putin's involvement in Syria, and of course everything Putin does, including going to the bathroom, affects Donald Trump. So, already we see how fast the world can change. And Donald Trump, he's not equipped to deal with it, but he's going to have to deal with it.
Right, right. Well, yes, they said, and I think this is the second time that Assad's been saved by the Russians. I guess they kind of hold on to him until perhaps they can, reinvent him and place him back in power. But it certainly doesn't look that way right now.
You
And
know,
you're right, Dave. There are conflicts that he's going to have to deal with. He's already mentioned today, after speaking with Zelensky, that he is calling for his ceasefire. And I think we all know that Putin doesn't want to come off as a loser, and Ukraine doesn't want to give up sovereign land. So that means that he's going to play hardball, right? And that does mean that he's going to cut ties militarily, at least to a certain extent, to Ukraine, which means Biden has to do a lot this month to unload weaponry and quickly. My major concern is this. I don't know if you guys are worried about this, but more so than, or just as important as the arms that we send Ukraine so that they can battle the Russians, it's the intelligence. And once Trump gets in, I think that'll be it. I don't think he will be the commander in chief, and he'll say, I don't want to give any intelligence here. This spot is here. This spot is here. So, is there something you think Biden can do in this last month? Can he create a back channel in any
yeah,
way?
but whatever he does, poor man, is going to come under fire. Last week, remember, right before we went on, it was announced that he was pardoning his son. Now, I'm going to speak to every Democrat everywhere right now. If you are a Democrat, I understand what you're saying. You are looking at the Michelle Obama, when they go low, we go high, or you're looking at Nietzsche's beware when you look into the abyss because the monster looks back into you kind of thing. But look, Trump doesn't fight fair. He never has. He never will. And ergo, no Democrat should criticize Biden for the pardons. We know that Trump's going to give them. So what? We don't? We have to start doing things like that. If Biden is willing to risk the reputation that some people say this will happen, fine, go with it. Now, I do want to talk a little bit, and Ryan, I'd be interested, well, both of your thoughts. I didn't have much time to research here because we're out in Vegas. But Brian, I'll start with you. Are you aware of the term presumptive pardon?
Well, as far as I know, I think where you're leading as the pardon is the type of pardon that will pardon anybody in case
Exactly.
anything possibly could come up.
Absolutely. And we've seen the best
Or
example of that.
preemptive or presumptive? Preemptive?
Yeah. Well, both. It could be
Okay,
preemptive or
presumptive. Okay.
preemptive and presumptive because you're presuming that they need the
Right,
pardon,
right, right.
And you're also preempting what would happen if they were given the pardon. So it goes under both names. But what I found interesting is probably the thing in American history that is most would resemble this the most would be when President Carter pardoned all the Vietnam War draft
hmm
evaders, and that was a blanket. But the difference is there is a difference. The difference is you knew they were draft evaders, right? Who are you going to pardon? According to NPR, Trump has issued more than 100 threats against people and organizations that he will get revenge and retribution on. That's a lot of people, and that's a lot of organizations.
All right.
So can you do that? And I think the interesting thing, the one who's pushing it, and he would be an expert in it, I think, one of the biggest voices right
I
now.
want to stop for a second. If folks, I have one setting for volume of my guests. I don't.
And
And one says
I'm
that
on
Ryan's loud. It's on my end. Everything sounds right. but I don't
I'll
know.
get a little closer to the mic here because I'm not using a mic
Well,
anymore.
I don't think they say yours is the problem.
I said
Uh,
mine is.
They're saying that the mic. So is it Ryan's too loud? But his sounds fine to me right now on my end, so I can't tell one way or another. So if somebody
Well,
could just be a little more specific, so I could kind of work around it, or maybe my guest can by tweaking the volume
and
levels. So don't do
what I
anything yet, Ryan or Dave, until we
I won't
know.
do anything yet.
Okay.
all right. Well, I'll talk.
You can
'Cause I
keep
don't say
talking, but I'm just
no,
saying, don't
but
change any
I'm not
volume.
worried. I don't say anything important anyway, so it doesn't matter. But one of the leading people pushing Biden to do this is John Dean, who, of course, was the legal counsel for Richard Nixon, and certainly he knows something about pardons and when they go. And he calls them, and I had never heard this term, but it makes sense. He calls them safe harbor pardons,
Right.
and that goes with presumptive and preemptive. And he's actually suggested. He said anybody involved with the Mueller investigation is probably going to need it. Anybody involved in the January 6th hearings
right?
with, January 6th, anybody involved with that would take in, of course, Liz Cheney and some ranking Democrats that would protect. And, he said, and then you need to look at this. So Biden's going to have to make a decision. And again, I would say I would support him in anything. But I think, again, right now, Biden should do everything he can within the law to make it difficult for Trump to do everything he's going to do, which is outside the law. That, to me, it's just that simple. Now, we get back to the assassination we mentioned earlier. And Sue's husband, Mark, he is very, very smart. He's in the garment industry. He's a CFO of a major company. He's extremely liberal, which is kind of interesting. But you do have that in New York on some of that, and he's one of those. So we were talking about the assassination, and it was really interesting. He felt that the assassination was wrong, and he said you can't have a country that has vigilante justice, and you can't have a country where somebody can walk outside the law. Okay, and I thought about that, and I said, all right, that's true. But I said if somebody broke into tonight here, when Mark and Sue were here, and I thought they were going to kill any one of us, I would take their life, and I don't think I would have a moment of remorse. I really don't. I know people say you would, but I don't think I would, just because that's self-protection. But if you extend that out, I can't remember. There was 3 words inscribed on the bullets. And they escaped me. But it did lend some credence to this was somebody who was involved in a decision that didn't go well, either for a family member, a friend, probably not himself. And so in that sense, it was retribution. And I suppose extending out, could you make a case that if that led directly, like if they would not grant insurance and the person died, is the head of the company responsible for it?
Oh, I think he froze.
I think he's contemplating right now.
He looks like he's deep in thought with
So
his
Dave,
mouth open.
if you could just repeat yourself there for a second,
I will.
You were caught in deep.
Do you have volume? I don't care about.
No, you're good. You're good. I think you're good. You make a good point. I see your point.
Taking this idea and running with this. In other words, and then it'll lead to something I want to say later.
I'm not hearing him very well.
I don't know if anybody out there is hearing him, but I can't hear him. In fact, with the screenshot that I have, he's frozen. Nope, now he's back.
I am still frozen.
Right.
Yeah,
I hope
you're
you're
choppy.
using the highest quality bandwidth and obviously paying for the higher rate in your hotel, I assume, correct?
Now let's get to the important thing. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right.
Usually.
Take the picture off. Take the picture off. Start there. Now you've got it working again. You don't know what you're doing. Anyway, directing both to you a question. Do either of you see, or where do you come in on this idea? Is there any way the assassin was justified in what he did?
I say no. I just don't think you do that. Unless you're directly being attacked, you do it a different route. Like it's called the courts.
Oh, okay.
Now, I'm not
Let's
saying that that's going to work, but you go there first.
well then, okay. So Brian, let me ask you. Then what recourse do you have when the wrong people control the whole damn thing? Tell me.
I'm just saying this.
Let
If
me-
you
let me-
allow
let me-
him, if you endorse that behavior, then that's going to open up a can of worms. Then it could get out of control. I know exactly what you're saying. I just don't think that that's the route right now. We don't know enough about it anyway, because a lot of people are assuming that what he
I
did was,
understand
hey,
that.
you know, I hate these
I
people.
gave you the scenario. Someone that this man loved, at least in his mind, died because of an action that wasn't taken by the organization that this man headed. And what you're saying, and it's fine. I'm not
It's called
I'm not
vigilante
siding-
justice.
Okay, so you're with Mark. No vigilante justice whatsoever.
At this point, no.
Okay, Ryan, your thoughts?
I think that health insurance companies kill hundreds of thousands of people every year.
Correct.
And I think that I'm surprised that something like this has not happened sooner. Because, you know, these people profit off of our suffering and they create profit by denying service that we all pay for every month, that no one else in the rest of the world pays for in the way that we do. Over 600,000 people annually file for bankruptcy due to medical related costs, and a lot of them are before they die. They file for bankruptcy and then they are denied health care to continue, and then they die. So I think that every single health insurance agency and company and person who works for them should not even have those jobs. And I think that more than ever, we need, you know, socialized medicine. That's
Correct.
what I think. So I don't think that we should all start killing each other when we don't get our way. I think that's kind of what January 6th was leaning towards.
Mhm.
But I am super shocked that this has not happened before now.
And
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, I want you. There is something else to add to this. This company that this gentleman headed had, it is known, it uses AI for its decisions. That's known. Now, maybe AI is smarter than Donald Trump. I'm sure.
On the good ship Lollipop.
That's a great freeze frame.
This is the best part of the show.
Indeed. Oh, I like that. I like
Yes,
that.
it's good,
If
Dave.
in-
Let me put it on
if
all this, and then
indeed-
we should maybe
You know,
change.
it's really the work of the cameraman. You can't control, but that's okay. But anyway, what they had done, this company had done, is, now think about this for a moment. They were going to limit the time you could be under anesthesia that they would pay for. So you're going to have a 3-hour operation, but you only have 2 hours that they'll pay for. And they would make, it would be tough, okay? You're right, right? The simplest answer would be to have what everybody else in the world has, but we're too ignorant and we think we're too special to have it. And that is socialized medicine. And you can have a 2-tiered system. You don't have, you know, if you have enough money and you don't want to use the socialized part, fine, okay? But we're not going to get that from the Republicans. We know that. They're in charge now. So I think it's an interesting question. And I can see both sides of it, but I'm glad it happened, because this is what I want to ask you guys too. This, I think, is the most important thing that's facing everybody listening tonight and everybody in America. The key question, I think, right now, and it gets even more key as January 20th approaches, is this. At what point does the duty to comply with laws enacted by a legislature or by a majority, by legislative majority, or with the executive acts supported by such a majority, cease to be binding in view of the duty to oppose injustice. Now, that's not a new question, okay? That's replete in the world. That's replete in American history. Three great figures dealt with that. Henry David Thoreau, and in his discourses on civil disobedience. Gandhi, with his freeing of India from England. And of course, Martin Luther King and everyone involved in racial equality. Now, granted, the one thing that they all did, and Brian, this gets back to your comment, like not putting it in vigilante justice or taking someone's life, they all did it in a nonviolent way. Okay?
Right.
So, but the idea, we know, look, Trump lies. Project 2025, the only thing that will stop anything in their provision is if we stop it somehow. It's everything in there is going to come to pass in 4 years.
Well, Dave, if I can ask you, you know, we were talking about how
Sure.
we can stop it. I mean, obviously, you know, they are hoodwinked. They think we're wrong, and we know where that goes. But is it out of bounds to say that, you know, his downfall will be his own people? I would think they have to be the one to take him apart.
I would agree with you, and that's why I hate to see someone die. I mean, that for any death is a tragedy to someone. Okay.
Well, I could see cruel people die. I have no problem with.
But it's still
cruel
a tragedy to someone. Maybe it's that.
That's where
tragedy.
I'm not talking about what happened with the hit there on the CEO,
no.
but I'm saying I have no problem. Like, I don't think that person should have killed the CEO, but if the CEO is that evil, I'm not like too worried about his death. But you don't do that. That's what I'm saying.
But my point is, you can call any death a tragedy because it would be to someone, not to everyone.
Right.
But so let me ask you this: do you think if someone assassinated Trump, that would be? Then you get into all that, right? So we're not going to do that. But I do want to come back to something Thoreau said, and it stayed with me for a long, 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 long time. And I suppose at that long time, I'm 72, so this goes back to 1969. So I've been this way for a long time. A quote that I really believe in, and it takes a lot of courage, and I don't know that I have it. But Thoreau said, in an unjust society, the only place for a just man is in prison.
Right.
Let me repeat that. In an unjust society, the only place for a just man is in prison. I would like to say, before you get to prison, I would say now that the best place in an unjust society is protest. We have to start that. Now, people say, oh, it doesn't lead to anything. Did it lead to the end of the Vietnam War? Indeed,
Yes.
It did. Did it lead to enactment of certain civil rights positions that are now
Yes.
jeopardized again?
Yes.
Did it lead for India to actually be one of the major powers in the world, England? Now, it's
And in
not
Poland
quick.
with Lech Walesa.
and South Korea last week.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm not, and it's easy. It's easy. Like I said, I'm 72. I've lived in Washington D.C. I don't have to worry about anything in terms of making money, in terms of getting this or that. Like Ryan, of course, I'm concerned about what investments you would do and stuff. I mean, I'm not that, but I don't have the daily responsibilities that many people have. But I think at some point you have to look at who are you fighting, and we are fighting Donald Trump and the Republican Party. It is a fight, it is a battle, it is a struggle, whatever word you want to use. And we're going to have to use every means available to us. Now, not Malcolm X's by any means necessary. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking by any means necessary that falls at first within the parameters. Don't you think, I'll ask you this. I believe this to be true. Donald Trump has said that anyone who criticizes a Supreme Court decision is a traitor to America and deserves to be punished. Donald Trump has said and asked, why can't we send the police out to shoot protesters? We're not making this stuff up. This is what he said. He was in the White House when he did that. Boycotts, I see that. Certainly, we're seeing capitulation. I urge everyone to read Tim Snyder's book on tyranny. He suggests 20 things we can do, and his first rule, and we're already violating it, is don't comply in advance. Don't comply in advance. Jeff Bezos did it. Elon Musk is sucking Trump's dick as we sit here. But I don't think Trump will like him sucking his dick. That's my personal thing. Those two cannot coexist. So, Brian, when you said destroyed from within, I think Trump faces two. He has to have the MAGA support. That's pretty strong. But there's not room in the Oval Office for Vance and Trump and Musk. There's not room. So maybe we could look to there. But how do you, if you go with boycotts, what, Jeff Bezos has more money in his couch, loose change, than all of us three put together. So,
Right, but the
I think,
boycott will hurt the government in power.
and now I'm gonna play, tonight's my night to play devil's advocate. Okay? So I'll give you a boycott that I think a lot about. I believe that I support fully gay rights. I believe that I support even more strongly the right that two consenting adults have the right to do whatever they want to do. I mean, I have no idea, Brian, why Ronnie chose to marry you, but apparently you both consented, and that's a good thing. But so you're supposed to boycott Chick-fil-A, for example. Well, if you do that, are you really hurting Chick-fil-A, or are you hurting the young kids that work there? And that's where it gets tricky, right? You know Shoshana, right, Brian?
Yes.
And Shoshana is a true advocate. Once she hears anything bad about a company, she will never go there again. Well, let's look at that. Okay, Brian, you don't know this, but where I lived and where Brian does now, it is not just a food desert; it's an everything desert. And the only thing that really, yeah, if you need something in Upper Deerfield Township, you need to go to Walmart. It's the only store.
Right.
If you don't, okay,
Which is why it's
you
very
can
successful.
you can drive to a local store 15 or 20 miles away. I'm not talking about the inconvenience. I'm talking about what the pollution that puts in the air. I mean, so these aren't easy decisions. These aren't easy decisions. And I'm not trying to make them that way. But what I'm saying is I do think that it is here. It's not coming to us. We're all going to have to make some hard decisions. And again, my advice for what it's worth as an old man is don't be critical, like, of your own if they can't do what you think they should do. Like if a person can't protest, they can't protest. That's within their nature. And if they can, they should be out there.
All right. Well, we're going to move from the old man to the young man, half your age, and that'd be Ryan. Ryan, what do you feel about the situation?
Wait, you said, what do I feel about what?
The situation in general. What
Oh,
Dave was just talking about.
Yeah, so I do agree with Dave on if you can't protest, don't protest. Like, for example, I'm on the spectrum. I don't really like large crowds of people, especially if I don't know the people. So I've never really been a big protester, but I do a whole lot of things that I can do. In terms of boycotts, I think that boycotts are effective when millions of people do them. They are not effective when it's just like, I'm not going to Chick-fil-A anymore. I mean, I haven't been to Chick-fil-A in probably 10 years, partly because of how they treat gay people and other people. But I feel like there's a guy, I cannot remember his name. He's got a channel. He talks about, like, he goes to the grocery aisle and he looks at every product in the grocery aisle. And all he does is figure out which ones are owned by giant mega corporations, which ones are not, and recommends buy from the ones that are not. And so I've changed some of my grocery purchasing habits just because of that, and I don't know how many people are following what he says, but I mean, it seems to be a substantial number. But in terms of the, like, who's going to take Trump down kind of thing, I think when Trump and Project 2025 and Elon Musk with his Doge or whatever department wants to or starts cutting veterans benefits, I think that's when they're going to shoot themselves in the foot. And thankfully, I think they're doing that pretty soon, because I think like you all said, like, they're going to have to rip themselves apart. The only thing standing between us and all this Project 2025 stuff is two things. Number one, Republicans infighting and or refusing to cooperate. That's the only thing. And number two is millions of people taking to the streets. And I, would really like to see people, protest and stop things, and not let things happen. But We actually all collectively accidentally did one of the greatest protests in the history of the country during the pandemic. And that was
Mm,
no one went anywhere.
Right.
I mean,
mhm,
so many things fell apart just because we all didn't go anywhere. And I
mhm.
think, and that's one of the most nonviolent ways to protest is
Great.
if millions of people for 6 months just stop going anywhere, stop doing anything, stop spending money as much as possible, you're going to see everything grind to a halt. And that there's no one gathering, there's no one to aim a gun at, there's nothing. We're just all at home doing
Right. By
nothing.
the way, that does bring up a point that I do want to make because of the Russian aspect of my thinking, and that is, you know, Putin quashes protests, and it got worse and worse and worse as the years went along. He even has what's called the OMON, which is the citizens police. They
Right.
beat the shit out of people. I could see Trump getting these 33% lunatics out there, taking law into
You're,
their hands like they did in January 6th, and then they would try to quash the protests. I mean, that's the way autocrats work.
but Brian,
Now, Trump hasn't done that yet, but you heard him
you
say while he
two,
was president
He's
that we
threatened
need
it.
to get the military
you
out
and
and shoot
I,
people in the legs.
you and I differ on that, just because of this. You follow, and you're an expert in it, the Russian experience, and you can't deny that that's the way it is. But again, I think there are two things different when we look at America. Number one, as I say every time we get into this kind of talk, Russia has no basis to compare anything with democracy on. And we do. We do. Maybe we gave it up this time, but we still do. All right. And the second thing is, I assume I can safely say that Putin has iron control over the military. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes. As far as I know.
Trump does that, and we don't know. And everyone needs to know this. They need to, one of the things they could do, and Ryan, I don't want to forget, I want to return to something you said that I thought was very, very valuable. But the idea is, um, every one of us who opposes Donald Trump needs to get, and I'm going to suggest something that sounds foolish and silly and all that. There are some great kids' books on the Bill of Rights and the Constitution. You don't need to read that old foul shit that Thomas Jefferson did you could barely understand. Get something that, as kids, and make sure what our rights are. When I was working at the museum, did a national survey, and 72% more people could name the five Simpsons than could name the five rights in the First Amendment. So, we need to do that. That's something. I like, Ryan, what you said. I think that's brilliant, a stay at home kind of thing. But what you did, too, you gave something to everybody that they could do. If you couldn't go out and protest, you could find this guy online, right, that you were talking about, who kind of does the research for you and says this product, that product, and spread that word. You know, um, those who have money, but money's a little difficult because money gets.
There he is again.
If you want to take your screenshots, folks, now's your chance.
Yeah, I sent you one on Facebook earlier.
Oh, you did. Well, I haven't been checking Facebook, but apparently
Yeah.
other people are taking screenshots of Dave. So as much as the content is important here,
Oh, I think he just dropped off.
it turned into kind of another thing tonight. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
these weird things happen. I think Dave's going to sign back in. That's what he'll do. So while he's doing that, I'm assuming that he's doing that. Ryan, I'll let you continue your commentary if you like.
Well, there was something I was going to say earlier, but I didn't get a chance to.
When in doubt, are you aware of Harry Truman, Ryan? Do you know who he is?
Yeah,
In fact, I
know
knew
who
somebody
Harry
who knew
Truman
him actually at Cherry Hill West, a teacher who grew up.
Okay, well that's wonderful. But you do know who he is, and he had a sign on his desk. Do you know what that sign was?
The buck stops here.
And are you not the Harry Truman of Divided We Stand, since you control it all?
That's true.
So any fuck up is directly related to you. And if you had any courage, you just resign and get somebody.
No, my fuck up is letting a guy on who doesn't pay top price for his hotel room so he can get good bandwidth.
I had to go. I had to
Did you pay for the highest priced room? Yes or no?
Life is a series of decisions. I didn't have enough money to pay for the Highway Band and go to Ellis Island Strip Club. I had to make a decision.
Okay. Okay.
You would pay for the higher
Okay,
bandwidth.
Ryan. Let's let Ryan finish his thought.
Go, Ryan.
Oh, I was just going to say something that I wrote it down because I was going to say it earlier, but we moved on. But basically, earlier on in the show, when you asked me how I was doing, there was another thing that happened. So a friend of mine and I were talking about Trump's, victory, and he and I are both concerned, but we have very different ways of viewing the whole situation. He basically said, because I unfriended all these people on Facebook, and I'm just discontent. Basically, if you're a Trump supporter, you're out of my life. I'm just not even going to entertain it anymore. But he basically said that he takes the opposite approach. He says that we have to approach all of the Trump supporters with love and compassion. And he was really passionate about that. He said that we have to take our time and explain to them why they're wrong and show them why they're wrong. And I really wish I could do that. Like, it resonates with me on another level too. I know Neil deGrasse Tyson's dad said, it's not enough to be right. You have to be effective. And I can't remember if I said that on a previous episode of the show or not, but a lot of times in my life, I find that I'm right about a lot of things that a lot of people are not correct about. Eventually they find out that, I was right and they were not. And it just comes down, I have an analytical mind and I'm not, jumping to conclusions like a lot of people do. But a lot of times when I try to show people what I figured out or whatever, it blows up in my face. And it's because while I am right, I'm not effective at explaining why I'm right. And, so I was trying to ask him, like, how can we show love and compassion to these people when they are wanting to take away rights, force religion on people, and burn books, and empower rapists, give rapists parental rights, that kind of crap? How are we supposed to be compassionate towards those kinds of people? And I think that that's an interesting perspective that's out there, but I'll be honest, I struggle to understand how to do that. But anyway, that was something I was going to say earlier.
Ryan, something, I've thought a lot about that too. I'm supposed to be a peace and love hippie child, flower child from the 60s, and often view myself that way, but not this time. Where I think we can show that love and compassion is when if and when they come back into sanity. We should not hold the fact that they were Trumpers in their face.
I agree with that.
For example, my brother-in-law was a diehard Republican. I mean, he had no use for, he was opposed to everything Democrats stood for. And so in the first election, he voted for Trump. His wife said, if you do that again, I will kill you. I think that entered the decision a little bit now. But in 4 years, he realized his mistake. And certainly this time around and the previous time around did not vote for Trump. Jim Crilly, I'll give him a shout out tonight. He comes from a long Republican family. Brian knows him. He taught, he was one of the most popular teachers in Bridgeton High School's history, probably. And Jim's father is still a Republican official, and they've parted company. Jim was the first Republican I knew. Almost as soon as Trump came down that golden escalator there, he said no, and he continues to do that. So what I mean is there are people who will change their mind, but they'll change it on their terms. And I think what I would do is if anybody said, well, let me give you another example. I didn't tell Brian, this is my fault, my bad, as the kids would say. On election night, the day after, I wanted to talk to some Trumpers in New Orleans, where I was then. And we did, and Brian did a great intellectual argument of refuting what they said. And all of them just sat there laughing, saying, no, and saying, see, that's what we mean about you, elite, educated, overbearing, people, using Brian as an example. And all he was doing was speaking logic. These are not logical people. These are emotional people. A logical person cannot vote for Donald Trump. Mr. Spock is not going to vote for Donald Trump. So you kind of wait, but you have to look for your opportunities. And they're out there, but again, you have to be willing to do that. I'm not saying everyone is, just like everyone can't take the streets, everyone should not talk. to Trump voters. Like Brian, I'm joking about your cousin. There's no way you could do anything to remove him. I mean, there's none.
No.
He is where he is. Now, if he said, I was wrong, can you help me? Then you would be wrong to hold it against him at that point. But right now, it's two opposing views. And could I ask something? Why don't you, we haven't really talked anything about the people that are sending things in. Can you run a few up there? And we'll just be
Yeah, we've
quiet
had
for a minute.
some that obviously are not necessarily from the Democratic Party, but we'll just put it up there.
Well, Trump does not love anything other than Trump. End of story. End of story. I will not entertain that in anything. Trump loves Trump. Trump has no center, no core. He will say something on Monday, change it Monday night, change it again on Tuesday.
He's transactional.
And he's not even smart transactionally. You're
Right.
right. But anyway, but I understand what someone said. No, and that is a problem. A lot of really, what should I say, articulate, intelligent leftists now are saying, well, wait a minute, maybe we did push woke a little bit too much. Maybe we did do that. My suggestion on that, I've thought about it a lot, is I wish they would call me, I'll take it on myself, to ask about slogans. Defund the police is one of the stupidest slogans ever in the history of America. You don't want to defund the police, you want to spread the money out to help them. Get them, the people that can handle domestics, that kind of thing. Or Black Lives Matter, second dumbest in American history. All you need to do is put a comma after Black Lives Matter and TOO, Black Lives Matter too. That takes away the argument that, you think Black lives are more important. No, you're saying, hey, we're here, we matter too. So there is a lot of that, and the difference is the slogans, because again, emotional, lock her up, lock her up, lock her up, for what? They have more effective slogans, they do. It's just the way it is. What else we got up there?
And I think that Global has a point. We do have and even people who want to boycott don't always boycott. You yourself, Dave, said that you do like Chick-fil-A, so
yeah.
I don't know
and
if you
again,
still go there, but
am I rationalizing? Yes, I'm rationalizing, saying that I would rather support those kids and get a nice tea. I could go somewhere else, but let me ask you. I mean, again, and we kind of raised this: is McDonald's any better?
right. I mean,
Walmart,
that's why I say I got that
Target,
program.
Judy said, which makes sense. All right. Now, Target was going to come out with this whole idea of DEI and there was a mini boycott and a mini speak out, and they took all that off the table. Big corporations ain't us, okay? They don't care. They care about money. It doesn't matter which one it is. I like Ryan's idea or others' idea. Shop locally. Try to find what you can. Now, again, if you live in a small town like Brian and I did, or Brian does and I did, Judy and I, my wife, we tried to shop locally and we couldn't. I mean, there's nothing there,
Right.
So it is hard.
And they aren't
but
necessarily Democrats or liberals who own those small businesses too. So you have to be careful about that.
Well, there's that, and also though something you can do, and I'm trying to work on this. And I'm trying to bring it, is alternatives. For example, why do you have to get a store bought? Etsy. Get something created by someone. Help. That's an individual entrepreneur. Don't go. And I've got to do this, and I haven't. I admit I haven't. I have to start it. It's one of my New Year's resolutions to battle Trump and battle corporations. I still like the ease of Amazon getting certain things.
Mhm.
Okay, but you don't have to. People don't realize that you can get anything, books. Now I'm just talking about books because that's the largest purchase I make in a year. And I get more because Judy just looks at me and says there's no more room, and there isn't in our 1-bedroom apartment. So I get a lot of stuff on Kindle. And I didn't know. And naively, I just thought, well, Kindle's got it. I mean, I knew they had Nook for Barnes and Noble and a couple other things. That's still a big corporation. But there is a very large company, but they supply ebooks to local bookstores, so they get the money. So
Bookshop.org.
yeah, and Ryan, that's why I think what you said. That's why I really like that guy who, whatever his name is. There's the things we have to try to figure out. What we got down there? Photography stuff, the Vietnam War. Yep, Napalm Girl, definitely.
But the problem now is a lot of social media is beginning to be controlled more by conservative.
Well,
I mean, even TikTok,
okay, let's
YouTube
bring that
now.
up.
We always think of it as being liberal, but it's really not right now. There's more conservative on it. A lot of
let's go
propaganda.
let's go in the mind of Elon Musk. By the way, I hate to break this to you kids. There's a great picture of him out there wearing a mesh shirt and looking like he's an all guys bar. That is photoshopped. He's not that. But Elon Musk is the richest man, and he has expressed an interest, whether he's just playing or not, in purchasing MSNBC. And MSNBC will be for sale because it's just been let loose from its corporate entity. So just think about that. The one place where most people turn, or many people turn for the news that isn't Fox and Newsmax and OAN.
Where will we go,
Maybe.
Dave? I mean, where will Lawrence O'Donnell go? Where will Rachel Maddow go? You know, I mean, obviously,
Well, I will
I'm not
say
worried
this,
about Joe Scarborough, but
I'm not. I'll be on there in January. There is an organization. If anybody wants to write me or call me or say what's it. It's called Substack, and Substack briefly is this: as journalists started losing their jobs, they said we got to do something, and they got together with some tech savvy guys, and they made a platform. And the best writing right now being done in America is being done on Substack. And what happens is people can make money from it if you want, because you can get it's like a Chinese menu. You can get the one column for free, but if you want all three columns, you pay. So you don't have to pay any money to get it if you don't want to, and it's a pretty good place to go. Another place to look at is ProPublica. Now they've already said that the one of the first things they'll strike is NPR will be history. There goes another source. And sometimes you have to look outside. The Guardian right now is doing tremendous, it's a British concern, they're doing tremendous journalism in America. Al Jazeera has done that in the past. So again, but we have to start sharing that with people. Do you know what I mean? When we find these ideas, put them out. You've got the social media. I just use this example all the time.
Ron, Dave, just
Right.
I want
Let
to
me
make
see what
sure,
you got.
because I think this is important. We get somebody who doesn't necessarily agree with that. We need to have
You guys are
this kind
articulate and
of
educated. What do
discussion.
you think about order? Seriously? Yes.
Well, I have a question about that question. 20
Okay.
million what? Are they saying 20 million people are here? They want to deport 20 million people? There's 20 million people who are on the way. Like, what do you mean by 20 million? What is that number?
Well, well, I can't let him speak for himself, Jay Zeb.
Yeah.
We appreciate your comment, Jay Zeb.
Yeah.
We really do. We actually want to have Trumpers on here to have an articulate.
Well, even that name,
discussion.
you know what? We got to find another name, Brian. That name has a negative connotation. I'm just thinking of that now. Trumpers to me has taken on the connotation of asshole.
All right. Well, I don't think that they're too concerned about that, but
I think they are. I think.
well,
they're
maybe
very-
they are. Well, then you'll
Would
forgive
you want to
me
be called
for
an
using
asshole? You
that.
are one.
And-
You know.
And just to be clear, Jay
are
Zeb,
a lot
I
of-
wasn't being combative and trying to understand your number.
Right.
I want to respond to your
Right.
question, but I wasn't sure the direction that you needed me to.
But there are a
respond.
lot of illegal immigrants, and the country has changed, and we never really got immigration down right. It was
And
essentially for years under Republicans and under Democrats.
When
And it's just the
Yeah.
idea that they didn't control the border. It's not a question of them working here. I think that most reasonable people would say that you can only hold so many people, and
Well,
even Democrats. I mean, all three of us probably agree that you have to have an immigration policy.
oh, absolutely. I mean, to say open borders is ludicrous. What
Yeah.
Joe Biden will have to answer for some things in history, and one will be his ineffectiveness and inability to secure the borders, or at least publicize what he did, or make people understand what he did, on the one hand. And it doesn't have to work. This is what's sad, but it doesn't have to work. Donald Trump had he was not going to build a wall, but he said he was, and people still think he built the damn thing. And he didn't. And what he did fell down. However, it got into the zeitgeist, into the feeling of people that Donald Trump's the man to deal with immigrants. Okay? So with immigration, I say, this is what I would say to someone who voted for Trump because they think he will be better with immigration than Kamala would, and they would feel that Kamala would continue the problems they saw under Biden. And the problem is, with Kamala, Biden made her the immigration czar. It wasn't a good choice of words. There's those words again. So I would hope if Trump can solve the border issue humanely, more power to him, but I don't see him doing it.
Right, and it's such an economic. We're kind of caught right now in the sense that I've said many times, and Jay Zeb, I hope you're still there, that this issue of illegal immigration could have been solved by simply saying, okay, businesses, you don't hire anybody unless they have a legitimate Social Security card, and that ends it all. And it didn't happen.
You know what?
And that's not going to happen even with the Trump administration. They still want to hire cheap labor, and that's what Trump did in Atlantic City. He hired cheap labor. They all hire cheap labor. So this is an issue that is not easily solved. Now, I'm not for open borders at all. You do have to have. You just can't decide to come to the United States because it pays better. You have to, deal with the problems in those countries.
The other thing, in immigration, we're already seeing Trump's ignorance. He did not know. He was questioned, and he did not know that the 14th Amendment provides for someone born in America to be a citizen. He did not know that. Now, if somebody out there didn't know that, that's fine. But you're the wannabe, and now you're going to be again the president of the United States. And then his answer was, when questioned, I said, well, we'll just change it. Well, it's not that easy to change the Constitution, Donald. Come on, get real. But anyway, I think that was an issue. I think it was a big issue.
It was certainly an issue in 2016. So I don't think there's any change in that, Dave. That was still the issue, immigration, for a lot of people. Now, some people are racist, obviously, and they don't want to see people come over. But I still think for some people, it's just a question of too many people.
Brian, you and I over the years have differed on the value of science fiction. You're not a fan, and I am. And one's not right, one's not wrong. But if you look at a lot of science fiction, when you became too authoritarian, you begin turning each other in. You mentioned that. You mentioned the Russians have that, kind of private policing thing.
Right.
In Cuba, when I got to spend time down there, I asked some. I said, "Where the hell's the military?" The only military I saw was in the Cuban museum. They said, we don't need it. Castro doesn't anyway. Every block has its informant, and every block has its enforcer. So what we're going to get into is, you don't think, okay, I'll use you and I, Brian. We get in a fight over something. Would it be conceivable, not with us, but with someone else, that you'd go and make up a story? I'd make up a story about you to get you in trouble? Or your cousin. Your cousin even said already.
Well, he would do that. He would do that.
No.
There's a difference.
So we all can agree that Donald Trump is a convicted felon, and several of his choices have been charged with sexual crimes. So why the hell is this conversation even happening? And it's very simple, Anthony, because enough Americans voted for Donald Trump to cause this conversation to happen. That's it. There's no, we can look and we can say, oh my God, how did you? They did. And they're either going to be happy or not happy. I think with tariffs, it's going to make them unhappy. I think with health care, it's going to make them unhappy. Take away the Affordable Care Act. Now, are you going to tell me that every Trumper has turned down the Affordable Care Act? Of course not. When they find out, when you start cutting benefits, that your state, Brian, is one of the leading states of getting federal aid in the nation.
Yeah, I actually learned that the other day. You're right.
No, it's true. So what happens is these myths that have become real, this reality show, I'm going to come back to it. We always try to tie it at the end. The Vanderpumps might be wonderful, but I don't know anything about them. But think about this. A reality TV star had enough to open 2 restaurants, and high class, I'm talking about high class, supposedly, and they were. The one was really impressive at looking. In the Venetian, which is outlandish and garish by itself out here in Las Vegas, and have that place packed with lines. One more thing. The Sphere, right where our resort is, it's right next to the Sphere. And if anybody doesn't know that, this is this huge ball now that is
the greatest building on the planet, in my opinion.
Yeah, what?
I think the Sphere is the greatest building on the planet. I love that thing.
Brian, I go out at night. Listen, this is true. I go out at night for like 15 minutes just to watch it change, because I can almost reach out and touch it from where we are. So the Eagles, the band, not the football team, is there. The Venetian owns the Sphere. It's part of that. They opened a Eagles, it's called VIP sales room. Now, notice you got the VIP. there were 100 people standing in line to get in that room.
Mhm.
And this was at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock in the morning. So you talk about spending. The Eagles are great people, I'm sure. Everybody likes Joe Walsh. But, are they deserving? The tickets, and they are sold out. The tickets ranged from a low of $524 to a high of $964. And that is list price. That is not resale. And so, it's kind of hard when people say the times are hard, and you see the money out here that's changing hands. Somebody asked earlier, I forget who it was. I think it might have been Global. I don't know. Somebody asked, I said, the rodeo is in town, and it is the largest rodeo in the world here. So you did not see Trump hats, but I saw more cowboy hats than I've ever seen in my life, even in Texas. And the money out here, you would never think we're in any trouble watching what changes hands out here. Now, there are people who, there's also a lot of pawn shops too. So, but Vegas has always been an example of, what am I trying to say? It's been a reality TV city, the great,
Athens
and
of
there's
America.
a gambler out here who said it best. The American dream is not just to get wealthy or to have a home. The American dream is to get wealthy and do no work to get it.
Right.
And out here, that's basically what you're seeing. So Donald Trump has to deal with all that. I would hope that he will rise to the occasion. I am 99% certain that he will not. But if he does, I would say great. Last thing is Tulsi Gabbard. I just want to mention her a minute. I'm going to make a prediction. I like to do it because I'm wrong more than I'm right. Tulsi Gabbard will not get confirmed for Director of National Intelligence. In fact, a former National Intelligence Director, and when John Bolton says you're bad because John Bolton was bad with Trump. There's pretty much a solid indication that there are files in Syria linking Gabbard with Putin and with Assad, and she's been on record.
Yes, absolutely.
She said Assad used no chemical weapons. Bullshit, lady.
Bullshit.
So again, I think one of the things that I'm going to be interested in, such a bad word because we're talking about lives, but Donald Trump may think he has things under control. Nobody does. Nobody does. The world, it is a big world, and what happens in France next will affect us. What happens, and Brian, back to one of your big concerns, and I think it should be addressed. We don't address it on this show because we allow Sandy and other people to do it. We haven't seen anything yet in terms of, because the first areas to be affected by climate change will be poor areas. They will have to have a place to live. And
Coastal areas, for sure. But we don't know. A lot of the droughts are a problem too.
Yeah.
So we'll see. Well, gentlemen, it's been wonderful having you on. We do have to end the show, so I am sorry about that. But hopefully that we'll all meet again next week.
And I would like to offer something to anybody out there who's listening tonight. If you come up like any person, like Ryan's idea, something that about, somebody's doing something, please send it. You can send it directly to me, or send it to Divide We Stand, or put it on there, and that way we can get the word out to other people, because we're going to need.
Right, we need your help, folks. Please share.
We're going to need every person we have to get through this, and every person who can to try to fight it back. So
and they should all of you out there should know us by now that we're not looking for hero status. I don't want it. We're not looking for anything aside from working as a team.
Along those lines, say the worst case, say they came knocking on our door tonight. I hope you don't take this wrong, but if I get a chance to say who I'm going to room in prison with, I'm going to go with Ryan rather than you, Brian.
I want solitary. I have like the Asian type mentality. I just don't. I need to. I think.
No, we all know what you want.
If they put enough of us, if they put enough people like us in prison, then the main currency in the prison isn't going to be cigarettes. It's going to be books.
Wouldn't that be interesting?
Well,
all of a sudden,
don't bank on it with the books too. You don't
know. You want to wait a minute. Pick up what Ryan just said. I want to just pick up on that minute. Study history and see, including Adolf Hitler. So it doesn't have to be the good guys. Look at how many books were written from prison by people because they were able to read. I mean, Mandela. I mean, the list goes on. Thoreau went to, he worked on it. Martin Luther King. So Brian, and again, I hope you understand
And
this.
by the way, thanks
If they
to Jay Zeb for partaking. Jay Zeb, we hope that you stay with us sometime and come on again.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
And just remember, Brian, the buck stops here. So if they come to knock on my door, I'm going to say, go get Brian.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Gentlemen, Ryan, David, thank you very, very much. And
Oh.
we'll see everybody next week. And please, if there's anything you remember, please, please, please subscribe and become a member. Let's work together. If you have any ideas, if you have any guests you can bring on, we'll be glad to have them on. We're just trying to make a difference. All right, folks. See ya.